Geeta Gopinath, the chief economist of the International Monetary Fund, said that India was primarily responsible for the downgrade in global growth. This as the IMF has also cut India's growth forecast to 4.8%. The IMF has also cut down global growth forecast to 2.9% owing to the economic slowdown in India and other emerging markets. Speaking exclusively to India today, at the ongoing 50th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, she elaborated on the global fallout of India's slowdown. Gopinath said that the economic slowdown in India had impacted global forecasts up to 80%. She said the financial sector is under stress and there was a sharp decline in credit growth.
I want to start by understanding from you the extent to which you think and the IMF believes that the slowdown in India is currently lowering the overall global economic.
So we've projected growth at 2.9% for 2019 and 3.3% for 2020. That's 0.1 percentage point lower compared to October. And the vast majority of that comes from our downgrade for India, which was quite significant for both years.
So how much of the overall global economic growth forecast that's been lowered has been lowered on account of the India story slowing?
I mean, if you just do the simple calculation, it would be over 80%.
Wow, that's quite significant. I want to understand from you, what is your road ahead? Because in the report that you put out just now, you're saying that the India growth story will be at 4.8%, which is substantially lower than your original estimates. When we spoke last year, the IMF was far more bullish, led to such a significant revision.
So the first two quarters of fiscal year 2019-20 came in weaker than we had projected, which is why we had this substantial downgrade. I think the one sector where we are seeing the most stress is in the financial sector, the non-bank financial corporations. We've seen a sharp decline in credit growth and a weakness in business sentiment. And that has led to the revised numbers that we have for India now.
What's your outlook going forward? Do you believe the bottom has reached and from here we'll see a pickup, because no one quite seems to be certain about where the bottom really is?
So we have India recovering. So we have India at 4.8% for 2019, but then going up to 5.8% in 2020. So we have a significant recovery coming in the next fiscal year. There's a fair amount of monetary stimulus in the system. The corporate tax cuts are there. And there have been these programs for transfers to the rural sector. These should help with the recovery in growth.
What are you making of the policy measures the government has rolled out so far? There have been some reports, most notably from Arvind Subramaniam, which said that, while of course land and labor are important reforms, given the current situation, that's not necessarily what will provide the stimulus. In the way that you see it and the IMF sees it, what's the kind of stimulus that you think that the Indian policymaker should really be looking at?
I think the major issue to address is this weakness in credit growth that I mentioned. And so policies that can resuscitate credit growth, but at the same time one has to make sure that you don't create another non-performing asset problem. I think that's the first step. So it could be quicker recapitalization of banks. I think that would be an important area. But there's also has to be important governance reforms. Again, like I said, you don't want down the road to be another whole set of issues with non-performing assets. So governance reforms are also important. And besides that, there is monetary stimulus in the system and the corporate tax cuts. I mean, these are forces that we project will help India go back up to 5.8%.
Aishwarya Paliwal now joins us live for the very latest on this. Aishwarya, it's a huge statement to make when the IMF says that India is the one that is responsible for the global downgrade that we're seeing in the growth figures as well. And their estimates as far as the growth figures for India going forward do not look very bright.
Well, definitely, and this is what even we have been seeing. We have seen how the past 6 quarters have been very bad for the Indian economy. Now, the IMF going ahead and cutting the forecast to 4.8%. This is the sharpest decline. But obviously, the green shoots here is that in the next quarter, the IMF says that it could be close to 5.8%, and then we could see it moving to 6.1%. So some green shoots there. But yes, if we talk about this quarter, definitely we will see that this quarter will be under tremendous stress.
Absolutely. Stay with us right there, Aishwarya. The opposition has also targeted the Modi government. Remember, after the IMF lowered India's GDP growth forecast in 2019-2020 and blamed it for the global downturn. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram put out a tweet criticizing the government. Chidambaram has said that Geeta Gopinath was amongst the first to denounce demonetization. He also added that union ministers will now attack Gopinath and the IMF. Congress's Kapil Sibal in his tweet termed Modi-Shah duo a drag on Indian democracy. AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi also took pot shots at the Modi government. In a tweet, he sarcastically remarked that all impossibles are possible under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Aishwarya, now going ahead and getting us more details on this fight that we're seeing between the opposition and the establishment. Of course, you know, this is on a platter. This is fodder on a platter, Aishwarya, as far as the opposition is concerned. When the IMF says that India is the one responsible for the global slowdown that we are witnessing and the growth figures have gone ahead and downgraded, you will see opposition leaders take that chance to take pot shots at the establishment. And, you know, and these are not pot shots that they just take. The proof is in the pudding. The numbers speak for themselves.
Well, definitely, you know, and we have seen with the budget just round the corner, we have seen how P. Chidambaram, the former finance minister, has been taking pot shots continuously at the finance minister. He's also going ahead and saying that now it is the IMF which has dropped the forecast. We could expect some BJP leaders to try and say that IMF forecast is not correct, because we have seen in the past whenever there have been reports on the economy, and we have seen how most of the people have been saying that economy is not doing well. BJP leaders have a habit of saying that those people are not correct and numbers speak for themselves. But in this case, the numbers are not good numbers, and we have seen the past 6 quarters how the GDP has been sliding. This quarter too, the IMF is saying that India could see a dip in the GDP, revival only next year.
Thanks much, Aishwarya, for joining us with all those details right there. Moving on now.